get excited for next year.
Sounds like a great slogan for next year's Mobile World
It's going to hit the fan
It's
when it hits the fan. 2020 Mobile World Congress.
5G hits the fan, everybody. We're here at Mobile World Congress Los Angeles. You can hear it in my voice. I am tired of this show. Oh man, I've been here all week. We're at the last day of the show. I'm here with Mike Dano from Light Reading, my colleague and the man who's covering most of the show while I'm standing in front of a camera being tired. But first of all, I have a bone to pick, but I do this playfully. You wrote before the show that the show wouldn't get a 5G lift, and yet somehow that's all we're talking about.
That is certainly all we're talking about.
What did you mean by that?
Is 5G. So, you know, a big part of 5G, if you listen to the carriers, a big part of 5G is sales to business customers.
Yes.
And how it's going to enable new use cases in the business area. And so, but that didn't play out in the attendance figures because attendance at this show is flat from last year.
Right.
So, you know, my assumption would have been that a lot of business customers would have come to this show to learn about 5G if there's these, you know, amazing use cases. However, instead, we have relatively flat attendance at this show. I don't think that that necessarily means that there's no interest among business customers. In fact, I was just at a survey from a company called HarrisX that does surveys of business customers, and there is actually a lot of interest among business customers in 5G, but it certainly didn't pan out in terms of attendance at this show.
Yeah, I think business customers are interested. I think the first blast of energy related to 5G was aimed at the consumer market. And I think that a lot of business customers just kind of tuned it out because it was like they were, you know, Verizon, AT&T, and everybody's been running mass market commercials during football games talking about speeds. And business customers are like, man, we don't care. They want control, they want, you know, management, they want all the good things that running their own networks, you know, can give them, and latency and things like that. And that hasn't really been communicated in a big way. It's starting to make its way to market now, but I think it's happening office by office as they visit the Fortune 500.
I agree. And a big message, I think, from the operators that have been speaking here at the show is, you know, look for 2020.
Yeah.
It's gonna hit the fan in 2020, and get excited for next year.
Sounds like a great slogan for next year's Mobile World
It's gonna hit the fan
it's
when it hits the fan. 2020 Mobile World Congress.
5G hits the fan, everybody. So any big observations or predictions that have come from the show or come from interviews that you've had at the show? Anything that stands out as remarkable?
I mean, we had a couple of interesting tidbits at this show. I wouldn't say that we had anything major. I think that's pretty clear. But we did have several interesting tidbits. I mean, T-Mobile said they'll launch 5G on their 600 megahertz spectrum earlier than expected. Okay. So that's, you know, that's interesting.
Does that give us any signal about whether we think the merger is going through or not?
I wouldn't say it has anything to do with the merger. I think the merger is, you know, this sort of amorphous thing that no one can really control.
It's just water vapor.
It's just it's going to do something eventually. We just don't know when or how. But yeah, so the merger certainly is sitting out there. But you know, in terms of other takeaways from this show, I thought it was interesting that Sprint said, in fact, I'm writing this now, Sprint said that they're seeing, among their very small number of 5G customers, they're seeing 3 to 5 times more usage among those customers. So I think that's, again, another interesting data point for 5G that certainly points to momentum.
Yeah, you give people the bandwidth and the capacity, and they're going to use it. They're going to figure it out. Okay, well that certainly tracks with everything else that's ever happened in broadband.
Yes, it is not playing against the trend.
But we just that's the thing, is we just didn't have that we didn't have that on a working 5G network. So now we know.
We have, yes, clear evidence.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of my conversations have been around, you know, scale and security and sort of these missing the things that are all missing from you know, the early 5G talks. You know, it's too much to wait until the standard comes out to really think about security. You have to bake it in early, and a lot of carriers are not really being terribly vocal about how they're doing that, and so a lot of the vendors are getting louder and louder about, you know, what their approach is and why it's better and that sort of thing. And then I had a meeting with Radisys the other day talking about their work with Reliance Jio and how, even though that's a 4G network, they're talking about how they've solved some of the scale issues with their virtualized products, and how it just brings a completely different set of challenges to the market that we're not really seeing here, because in the US and North America, we just don't have the capacity, we don't have the density of people using a network. But we might when it comes to massive IoT and 5G. So they're sort of learning things in that environment that could help harden products later on. So that was, again, interesting tidbit, but, but
not quite a.
what do we do with all these tidbits? Oh yeah, right.
It's good. We'll have a conversation about it. Sounds good.
Indeed. Okay. Well, we should do a longer, more thorough show wrap later. But thanks for all your fine work at the show, and that's it for now from Mobile World Congress Los Angeles.